my most important essence of food came from the Golden Temple, where I realized that food was absolutely one of the greatest forms of secularism and democracy.
Hi, I'm Shoma Chaudhury. Thanks for watching Enquiry. While farmer protests are escalating in India, I'm really happy to bring you a unique conversation about food, which reminds us about its power and its centrality in a completely different way. Michelin star chef Vikas Khanna is one of the most well known faces in the global food industry. He's been voted the sexiest chef in New York. He's been on the cover of New York Times. He's cooked for 3 American presidents. He's been given the Benjamin Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt Awards. And he has milestone after milestone to his name. He's been on TV shows, he's made documentaries, he's written 40 books, and he owns the Tony restaurant called Junoon in Manhattan. But what makes Vikas so unique is the extraordinary way in which he relates to food, even beyond fine eating. He's used food to examine faith and religion, and most recently during the lockdown, he spearheaded a campaign that has fed more than 56 million people and counting. He's now released his first feature film, The Last Color, and it's 4 a.m. in New York, but he's still on Inquiry to talk about the absolutely inspiring journey from his grandmother's kitchen to conquering the world and the role that food has played in it. Thank you so much for joining me, Vikas.
Okay.
So, Vikas, you're coming straight from Times Square. You've just launched your film, The Last Color, in India. And, not too many people know about this aspect of you. You're the food superstar, the ambassador for India all over the world. But what drew you to make The Last Color?
I wrote a short story in 2011, and many people actually do not know that I've written more than 42 books. We've published 37. I work much in advance. Of course, this year has interrupted all my cycle. And I wrote a short story about the widows in Vrindavan, because I was there during the Holi in 2011, and because I really have a lot of respect to Banke Bihari Temple, and I think it's so majestic and beautiful. But when we came out of Holi, there were so many widows on the street who were just hiding on the sides and on balconies. It really broke my heart because it took me back to my days of childhood when the fear was instilled in these women, and almost to the point of being punished for something which was not even their fault.
Right.
And I remember my neighborhoods are my family members, and it just crushed me. That day, I don't know why it crushed me very deeply, and I had a flight back to, and I was getting very emotional, and it pulled me down. And especially there was a lady, I just looked at her and did this because you're on television, so my first reaction is you smile as if
Without seeing anyone, really. Yeah.
just smile because I don't know what they're seeing, if they recognize or they don't. So, and the lady just joined her hand and she tilted her neck and she did this to bless me. And she was just standing on side of a little narrow drain. I couldn't get her out of my head. And I wrote a short story on the flight. I had to fly back to New York same night. So Vrindavan, we were rushing me through so that we have enough time to fly. And I wrote a short story and nobody published it. And then 2012, the Supreme Court of India, Honorable Supreme Court of India, gave orders for rehabilitation of these widows. Post that decision, with the help of Sulabh, these widows paid Holi for the first time. And 2013, I opened my laptop and there's a story by NPR and New York Times, and all mostly that the only few journalists I read, and everybody spoke about this, that this is a big transformation story, that this is redefining hundreds of years of culture. And I said, why this story is coming back to me again and again? There must be a reason. And I just hold on to that story. And in that short story which I written, I pulled it out because I deleted it.
Right.
And I pulled it out from the emails which were sent to different editors for publication. And I deleted it. And it was there in one draft was only saved. And I started expanding it like crazy. I said, imagine that they played Holi. Because in that, I just kept them colorless. And I said, imagine if they were given color. So color will become symbolism to rebirth and to reincarnation.
So I believe that there's also a personal strand in it. Some memory of your aunt. Was there any aspect of this kind of, repression or culture in your own
Always,
family?
always, always. I just feel that fiction is somewhere deeply rooted in reality, but it's like a reflection, and it could be distorted, it could be changed, but there's something which is very holding on to the true ground of the reality. And I remember my grandmother used to tell me an incident when my elder bhua, her name it was Surinda Bhua, she was one of my favorites people in the world, and she was widowed in Bombay, and she came back to Amritsar with her two dogs. And my father went to pick her up at the station, and she was wearing all white sari, and she had her two dogs with her. And my father fell on his knees and he kept crying, "This is not my sister. Where are the colors?" That really had this thing on me, that how when my grandfather passed away, I went to my grandmom's room and I was throwing tantrums like crazy, that you're not going to wear a white sari, because I felt the moment they wear white sari, I was a kid, and I said the moment they wear white sari, it means they're going to be disconnected. They're going to be different. They're not going to be part of us playing Ludo and going to markets and temples and festivals and weddings. They're not going to be one of us. Because मेरे दिमाग में fear पड़ा हुआ था वो पुराना. फिर my victory on that day was that BG wore gray suit. I won't forget. Light बिल्कुल था, because मैंने जो उधम मचा दिया था मैंने रो के, because I could have not seen it, but maybe those fears were there in my heart, and something had this instinct of survival for me, that मेरी सास वाले भाभी जी थे, she was so fair, पेशावर के थे वो, उनके दुनिया के सबसे सुंदर हाथ उनके थे. I used to see that she had the most artistic hands, but she was very fat, and she would love me, but होली पे मैं उनके हाथ के अंदर यहाँ पे पिंक रंग लगाता था. कभी नहीं भूला था मैं, बचपन से छोटा सा था मैं, तो she used to मुट्ठी बंद कर लेते थे कि कोई देखे ना. Kind of, those kind of things I've lived, and I feel that's उनके घर में गार्डिनिया का फूल थे, और जितने सुंदर वो खुद उतने सुंदर गार्डिनिया के फूल सफेद वाले. So I never forget those things, and I think those were very important my forming years, and that's why this story became very important to me, because I wanted to pronounce the victory of color. I wanted to make it loud, and we are talking about it now, but nobody picked up that story. It was just like slipped, and it was just passed away.
Yeah, it's a
Literally.
blind spot. And I mean, people know of it here, but, it's not given any prominence and also because possibly customs have changed slowly. It's not as rigid as it used to be. But when you
The
highlight it,
movie set up in 1980s, when the customs were still strong, the less voice they had. And there's Noor, which is a character. Because my grandfather he was the biggest fan of Nina Ji, and he used to love her in Mirza Ghalib, and says, "Eh, kudi de muh te na Noor bada." Like, her face is always glowing, and it is always glowing.
yeah, it's
And
so lively.
that, I kept her name Noor, and because she was born out of darkness,
That
and the light couldn't be controlled.
Another very interesting thing I noticed, is just a little detail, but I believe that many people didn't want to join you on this project, and you had quite a difficulty getting people on board. So why was it? Was it that people were saying that, you were sort of exporting the typical exotica,
No,
poverty story of India, the culturally repressive story, or why were people not wanting to join you? Did they feel you were stereotyping India, or what was
no,
the issue?
they were because every time I met someone, उनको लगा cooking show करने लगा हूँ. So it's also, see, I'm not somebody who studied and did a job of something. There's an art which has been curated with years and years of experience. This craftsmanship has like, and it's like, you are one of the most well-known faces on the planet for that arts. And even if I underplay it, I know it, that how many years it takes for you to be on the center stage. And people expected me doing cooking show, and whenever you met them, और इस तरह आपकी इन चक्करों में पड़ गए तो बड़ा खतरनाक खेल है फिल्म्स का. तो फिल्म्स के तो बड़े बड़े उड़ जाते हैं, अगर आप क्या चीज़ हो, आप तो खाने का काम करो ना, आप दाल रोटी बनाते हो, इतना ज़्यादा आपको नाम मिलता है. And that's also very human nature, that people are not very forgiving when you want change.
Yeah.
The world is not too kind to something new like this. And the world did not have you never experienced a Michelin star awarded chef to be diversifying like this the way I do? The
Yeah.
way I do risks like crazy, and people say, this is your end, this is your end. I said, if I start believing people this is my end happened in Amritsar only. भटूरे बेचते हुए फ्राई करते करते मेरा एंड हो गया था. I said, no, we got to push our boundaries and we got to be bringing more form of arts, more stories of empowerment, which is very much required.
So before we move away to, the other aspects of your life, and like you said, it's really multifaceted and diverse. I wanted to ask you about the other strands. So the core idea of the film is the friendship between Noor and the little girl.
Yeah.
But, you're also touching on caste, on desire for education. So, is it like what were you, when you started writing and expanding, what were the other stimuli that came in for you to do the whole film and story?
I knew it from the very beginning there's going to be a transgender in the movie. I knew it from the very beginning. From the screenplay, novel we had it later, but we wanted to get it. But my novel is very beautifully written. And I realized how difficult it is to make a movie out of novel. Because novel, you can write anything. So Anarkali, she's neither fully male, neither fully female. She neither lives on the ground, neither she lives underground. She lives in the excessive drainage pipes of Gangaji, where when the water overflows and she has no place to go. Because those are the pipes which overflow, the water is taken to different areas for agriculture. And she lives in this temple, which is called the Temple of Fireflies, which is under the ground. But it's not actually under the ground. It's in a
She's
drain.
like the Narasimhan character. And
So I had so much of work, but to create those things, I'm like, everybody's like, have you gone crazy? How are you going to do that? And then we talk about, the moment Ninaji Noor asked, if I narrate, Noor asked Choti, what's your name? And she says, Choti. She said, what's your real name? She's saying, Choti, that can't be your name. How can Choti be your name? She's saying, that's how our names are. I'm short, so I'm called Choti. So you're fat, you're called Fatty. And she laughs. She's saying, all these dogs at the ghats, they don't have any names. You're given a name by someone who loves you, or you belong to someone. You don't self-name yourself. And at that moment, something inside Noor evoked. She left the teacup which Choti had got for her. She left it right at the cart. She felt hurt that the little poor girl spent money for this cup, but she could not control her heart was full. It was as full as the monsoon during the Ganges and those overflowing waters which submersed the temples. Some thought that was the end, but some thought that was the beginning. And then it rained. अब ये लिखना कितना ईजी है, क्योंकि 50 किताबें के करीब लिख ली हैं, लिखना कितना ईजी है मेरे लिए, विजुअल हो ना दिमाग. अब execution is so hard, movie making is so hard, it's so difficult, and getting the characters ready and getting that whole aura of the city ready. And I'm sure Gangaji was helping me, Banaras was helping me, but still, it's not easy putting a story into a movie.
so I'm going to bring you back to the film a little later towards the end of our conversation. I just want to explore some other aspects of you. So coming to food itself, Vikas, you are, like I've already said, like you yourself said, you're one of the most known faces in the food industry. You could have just kept yourself in that upper layer of food as art, which is where you have reached. But you're engaging with food in so many other ways, through interreligious events, through films, through this huge humanitarian drive that you just did and which people noted you for. But before I get into all of that, what does food mean for you then? Personally, what has food been in your life? Is it art? Is it something else? What is it? What drove you?
It's an equalizer. You could be the richest, you still need the food. You're the poorest, you still need the food. And food is one of the greatest forms, which is our sustainability. And my most important essence of food came from the Golden Temple, where I realized that food was absolutely one of the greatest forms of secularism and democracy. like who sows and who harvests and who packs and who grinds and then who cooks and then who eats. दाने दाने पे लिखे खाने वाले का नाम. Like, how this entire circle works. And from the very beginning, because I was raised in that kind of household where the harvest was important and all these things are very necessary for our upbringing. And I realized one thing constantly is my grandmom. And she says ke guste mein khana nahi banata. And I was an angry child. I'm still an angry person. But I don't know how to express my anger. So I have to create something else. I want to put all that energy into creating something magnificent. Even if the world doesn't count it to magnificent, at least I've put all my efforts to give birth to something which I feel is my heart and soul.
Right.
Otherwise, I don't need to prove myself to anyone. खुद को मेरा दिल नहीं करता प्रूव करने को चीज करनी होती है. मैं कहता हूँ फेल होना बेटर होता है, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कम हो जाती है.
But दिल से तो- We'll come to your failures, but let's focus on this now.
But
Yeah.
I feel that it is important. Food is that necessity which actually equalizes and binds each and every person around you. This is something which I felt was very powerful, that as a child you were raised in those kitchens, and what was the possibility that you would be performing on the world stages and different challenges. Of course, your essence came from that day when you felt, nobody asked me I could run or not run, or like other kids, I could be playing sports, but people just looked at what I could cook. And it was like, for me, it became like my extension that, this makes me equal to everyone else.
That's beautiful, Vikas. That's truly a phrase I hope penetrates, especially now during the farm protests and, just the centrality of food and sharing of food. But I'm not sure too many people know this story about you. You just said that in a sense for you also, it made you feel equal because people wouldn't notice that you couldn't run. So will you tell us that story about the fact that you had a, form of special ability as a child? And you spent a lot of time in your grandmother and mother's kitchen. And so actually your relationship with food began there. Can you talk about that and what it was?
So I was born and raised in Amritsar during the World War, during India-Pakistan War, 1971. And the moment I was born, the doctors felt something is terribly wrong with this child. First of all, it's too skinny, too underweight. And then something is wrong with his feet, that they're totally pointing towards inside. It's called the club feet. And, it's a minor operation, but, you're talking about era when, there was no internet, no proper guidance. And, we're talking about parents living in Amritsar. And during the war, I was born. And this child might not be able to ever run like other kids. Of course, he can walk. That's what the doctor said. My mom doesn't take this well. And within 1 week, she heals herself and she takes me in a train. And she, it's like, that's time of war. And she takes me to Delhi. My father's bhua was in Delhi, Pushpa bhua. Padma bhua was there. And Padma bhua, like, we go to the house and she got my first surgery done. And people kept saying कि नहीं चलेगा, कभी नहीं होगा. And she said, नहीं चलेगा तो क्या होगा, उड़ तो सकता ही है. There's always choice to fly. But I just felt that was like, they kept pushing in my brain that if you're different, it's okay. But kids are not forgiving for growing up. Kids don't spare this kind of shoes, wooden shoes and braces. The kids don't spare that. And it was very difficult for me to explain why I don't do well in education, why I don't study properly. It's like didn't want to go to school at all. And failed in every possible class. And then on 5th grade, they said, we can't promote him to the next one. He's got to repeat the classes. So I was with the elder brothers in 5th, and then I became classmates of the younger brothers. So, and I was so dumb. My sister is 2 years younger than me, but we were in the same class. But I was like, we graduated at the same time. But I felt that also gave me resilience. It gave me a very strong sense of, even now, I take failures in a different, I become a different animal when I feel badly. But I think that's also great that you had to fight the wars in America. In India, you were just a common caterer. And you came to America, you said, no, I'm not going to accept this. Can't be accepted to be suppressed like
The
this.
corner shop boy. Yeah.
I can't be, you can't stereotype me just because I should stay in my steel kitchen and just do curries, and you're not allowed, we're not going to listen to you if you come out. I'm like, now I'm definitely going to find ways to get out. So it's okay. When more people push me back, I become more, I don't become aggressive. My voice cannot be, I have tried being angry and people laugh. When I'm angry in the kitchen, they think, what are you trying to imitate? I'm like, I'm not trying to imitate anyone. I'm just angry. It's like, Chef, we know you can't be angry.
So that's interesting dichotomy in how you see yourself and how the world sees you. When you said that you're a very angry person, so does the anger come from this childhood where you felt sidelined and belittled and mocked at, or is the anger something else? And then how
anger,
do you express your anger?
anger changes form. Anger changes form for me in America. Of course, in India, it was just like, making more money, getting bigger banquets. That was the things you were looking at, that was the parameters. Getting another 2 cars for catering. So I had almost 300 people working for me in Amritsar. When I left Amritsar one night, I just quit everything. Sorry, eyes meri aankhein. So, my anger in America came from a very different source. It was for equality. It was for constantly being told that, this is, I remember one chef telling me, it's a very horrible statement, saying that, America is a country of equality. You can only be friends with equals, or else it's masters and slaves.
Oh.
And there's a caste system in America. You understand that. You lived here almost half your life. And you know that what the person is saying is actually, majority of it's true. But what is also true is that, they took off, the democracy won again a few weeks back. So the equality is
Color, yeah.
personal. It's personal, how much you're ready to fight for it. And if you think you're inferior, everybody will come around and push you down. And यहाँ पे नहीं चलता, sir ji, यहाँ पे they want you to stand up and they want to see how you fight it. So मेरा एंगर वहाँ पे जाता है, जो बोला कि नहीं जीत सकता देसी लड़का, ब्राउन लड़के, मिशेलिन स्टार आप लोगों के लिए नहीं है, फिर तो कुछ नहीं और करना, सब कुछ छोड़ देना, फिर तो मिशेलिन स्टार जीतना। किताबों के ये अवार्ड नहीं हो सकते आपके, ये नहीं होता, सस्ता होता है, वो होता है, सबसे महंगी किताबें, सबसे महंगे खाने, गुस्से में किया मैं I know I'm not misguiding people to be angry. Use your anger and channelize it to something else. It's like fire, चिता भी आग से जलती है और खाना भी आग से बनता है, but you got to be able to utilize that force and to be very stable about this, and whatever you do, you've got to do it wholeheartedly, otherwise just don't take projects.
I think your best riposte came recently when, some senator passed a pretty racist remark about Asian immigrants. And your tweet was fantastic because you said, yeah, Michelin star, Eleanor Roosevelt Award, Benjamin Franklin Award,
All the presidents award.
chef in New
All
York,
the presidents
3 presidents that you have fed. So that's anger well used, yeah, Vikas.
But it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. At every stage, it just doesn't go away. It's just that there will be people around you who will be saying, this is not qualified, not qualified. I'm like, what do you want me to do? Please. And I like one of my most important chefs in my life is Chef Eric Ripper. He's saying the amount of work you do, we can actually count in percentage what other chefs do and the attention they get. And if a white chef was doing almost similar kind of work, which I do every single day, he will be on the covers here and applauded for it. But I don't do it for applause. So for me, it's okay. I've got to do work and I've got to move on. If I start calculating that, and then I say, you know what? And people say, no, it's never going to happen. I said, dude, just remember that. I was on the cover of the New York Times worldwide. And generally, it's only the politicians who get that space, or the biggest movie stars, not chefs also. So you can't just keep reducing me. And I'm not arrogant about it, but you can't just keep reducing me that you're less than us. it's a very difficult equation to balance in this country. Or they want you to have the similar accents and fake accents, and so that they can laugh at you, and you feel, oh my God, you patronize us, oh, it's so much. I don't patronize anyone except for my mom. I'm not scared of anyone because mom se meri abhi bhi jaan nikalti hai. Because I know there cannot be a mean bone, and there cannot be a second motive to what she's trying to tell me. I still listen to her, which is a good thing.
So we'll come, but I think you used this word stability, and I liked that because it was just a throwaway line you said somewhere else, but you said, you found your stability and sense of shelter and centrality when you were in the kitchen with your mom and your grandmother, so it's amazing how both these two women's influence has come into you and, proved that stable core for you through food. So that's beautiful. So I want to, before again come to the art form that you have created with your food, I wanted to ask you about this huge humanitarian drive that you did. Of course, that viral video of the little child pulling his mother in the station, everyone reacted to that. Everyone was shaken by that. But typically one's response is to feel awful, to tweet, to be on WhatsApp, and then people move on, but it triggered you into such a gigantic exercise. So what is that in you? Is it, again, the Golden Temple ethos? Is it you personally? What moved you to act? And, again, I'll come back to that question about what food means for you.
That video, it just sent shivers. And it was, I still remember, it was 3 something in the morning here. And we were just wrapping up the day's work in Feed India, in India. And 3 something, and now I need to do call sheets for tomorrow. I ran the entire thing. I've shared all the documents with CBS just a few days back, and they wanted to go through all my documents day to day. 8 months they've been through everything handwritten. So that thing is going to get converted into a book now. That day was very hard. And the child is trying to...
a notch louder. I can barely hear you.
Sorry. That day was very hard when that video came. It was very unfortunate. And, within 8 hours, by the watch, 8 hours, we had food in 8 stations to be fed to the next train and the next train and the next train. How we drew the map within, like, CRPF is with me. Like, everybody's on the call. Something happened to me. I'm like, we could have saved her. We could have done something. We have resources. So we said, let's buy as many bananas in the market as possible right away. Second, buy water bottles or juices right away as much as we can. Third is we need to get sustainable carbohydrates. So, my brain thinks in terms of food like that.
Yeah.
And there was nothing we could figure out of sustainability at that time. खिचड़ी बनाते हैं तो स्टेशन में ट्रेन्स लेट हो रही हैं, खिचड़ी बड़क रही है, क्या कहते हैं इंग्लिश में, फर्मेंट होती चीज,
हाँ, फर्मेंट से
खिचड़ी खराब हो रही है, हमको कुछ समझ नहीं आ रहा. हमने एक काम किया, हमने कहा फोन करो वहां पे पास में सरदारों को, कोई ढूंढो, उनको बोलो आके पूड़ियां बनाओ. So that was the fast, and I'm like, within 8 hours, if we don't have something, I will accept defeat in this. 8 घंटे के अंदर अंदर हमारे पास कोई 1.25 लाख पूड़ी, 1.25 लाख कहाँ, पर मैं पागल हो गया था उस टाइम. It's like, chef, you need to cool down, you're gonna have a heart attack. I said, no, we could have done something. Mama is watching this. And that I'm like saying, and I'm crying. I'm like, Mama is gonna watch this news. We could have gotten to that stations. We knew the trains was going to start, but I got too focused on the starting point of the trains. Oh my God, we didn't realize that trains were delayed. That food wasn't enough for that sustainability. So we were giving food packets at the station when they were boarding the trains. So we figured out the maps, and we had the railways officers with us. Like, we're going to stop the trains till everybody's fed. And Mr. Satya Pradhan is the head of NDRF. He said, Vikas, you need to calm down. I said, no, Mr. Satya, Mom is going to watch this clip. I kept saying that. रात के 12:30 बजे करीब, we are fully battalions ready when the next train stops, everybody gets the food. And we're going to give them 5 puris. So, there was a calculation involved, economics involved, money involved, resources involved. Sabko 5 puri ka packet. I think एक ही जगह पे we couldn't do achar in one place, but rest कहीं पे एक ऊपर से अचार, उसको फिर फॉइल के अंदर एक केला, एक जूस, एक पानी की बोतल, ये सब कुछ बनाए पैकेट और लाइनों में. That was something. I don't know. I said, I'm going to lose my faith. It's like you've stolen something and your mom is going to come to know about that. I felt she's going to feel I couldn't do my job. But that video really hurt. It crushed us inside. And I haven't spoken about that. The way you asked the question also, that moment was hard for anyone. And to feel that, with this kind of intelligence DNA, like the most intelligent breed of people think it's always Indians, and we failed. We all failed. The whole world collapsed, but I felt we failed. And that was difficult, but I used all that energy into that let's sort it. We cannot, as the trains are taking these passengers home, we are not going to let loose this. Every single day, Bihar, UP, Maharashtra, we will have provisions to feed the passengers on the train. Sorry, I got too passionate.
So glad you opened up and spoke about it beyond the headlines. So ultimately, over this protracted 2-3 months of acute exodus that there was, how many, do you have some sense of how many people or how many meals you would have provided? You said you've just done the documentation.
Everything is documented. Every grain is documented. On Monday, we crossed 54 million meals. We crossed almost 2 million ke kareeb sanitary pads. Like, this are the numbers. Kele, because kele was the only thing which was available in some places, and it's an instant energy, and water bottles, because that was difficult, and slippers. Slippers. We also, I don't know why, one little girl came to get the food on the highway, and it crushed my heart. She was without slippers. Maybe you're right that there is a sense of guilt in me, which I feel that the privilege which has been gifted to me, I've not earned it. I just feel that it was gifted to me in some way. I felt that interferes in my everything I do in the thought process, that, oh my God, that could have been me, that could have been me. But look, the provisions which I have been gifted from God and from the universe, and whatever we can say, that it's a very rare story to be here in this position. Maybe uska pain bhi hai, or I am open about when I fail. I feel, I don't have to hide my failures, because it's been it's very natural for someone who experiments way too much.
So I want to open up another aspect of your life, which is the sustained, deep interreligious work that you've done.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? You said you were born in the 1971 India-Pakistan war. You've spoken a little bit in different interviews about actually the 1984 riot and 1992 riot. So bizarrely, you've been caught in all those conflict situations. Mostly there, people react with a lot of anger. So much of the hatred and communalism one sees in India now comes from these milestone events. Your reaction has been completely different. It's to constantly seek, the commonality of food in different religions, the interreligious faith. I believe you used to fast once a day in Ramadan always. So can you help me understand how these three incidents impacted you?
Fast.
Sorry?
I still fast. At one day I fast.
And on Eid,
I'm not so strong to fast every day. And one day is also find it needs so much of control, self-control. It's like, but I've been doing it for so many years, since 1992. But and you also understand my profession is in the food. But we also always have kitchen employees who are Muslims, so they all understand that, So they keep it every day and they know it. Oh my God, how do you do it? It's my reaction. And as you're getting older, you're getting sicker sometimes. And chef is पर मत रखो. मैं कहा नहीं बच्चे कसम खाई थी उस दिन. So this has to be kept. But मेरा ध्यान रखना आप लोग. Please मेरा ध्यान रखना इस चीज़ से. क्योंकि मैं गलती से खा लूँगा. मुझे पता है मेरी प्रॉब्लम.
तो क्यों कसम खाए थे आप?
किसी के घर में 2 बेटी हैं और वो एक लड़के को रख ले अपने घर के अंदर और बोले कि थोड़ा मौसम बाहर का ठीक होने दो फिर इसको भेज देंगे. You know what that means? That you know what power it takes. Men don't have that kind of power. Men were never born for that. From the very time when we were in the caves and survival from the animals and basic, men couldn't take care of this. This was absolutely a woman's heart.
So you're saying a Muslim family sheltered you?
And she said that, kuch bahat ठहरने दो. Like, you know, let it get little stable outside. It also showed the aspect of the fabric of India. A Hindu child raised in a Sikh temple and sheltered by a Muslim woman. My first teacher of cooking was Mr. Ezekiel from Manipal. He was a Jewish man. My editor, who has taught me how to write, is Catholic, Rita. And I give my life for Rita. I give my life for these people. And I'm like, oh my God, this success is not so. Holy Kitchen's birthplace was from this inception of so many people's holding hands. It's such a pluralistic approach to food. And that is where Holy Kitchens was born. But also Wisconsin Gurdwara had a shooting. And that was very disturbing to me. You know, because I live a totally cross-border life and Wisconsin shooting when it happened, people started calling me and says, you know what's going on happening in Wisconsin Gurdwara? And that is when we had the little footage and we started making a documentary called Holy Kitchen's True Business, Sacha Sauda, Guru Nanak Dev Ji ki story. And we take it and I, you know what I do, like if I get passionate, I'm going to find another story, so it's a beautiful 30 minutes documentary to understand who Sikhs are, the most important tenets. And we thought we made a short documentary. It was in 2009. We had no idea what we were doing. So one of my friends, Tejinder Bindra, he runs a festival, Sikh Film and Arts Festival. It was in 2010. And on, oh my God, on October 10th, they released my documentary, House Full Asia Society. And it called me on the stage. मैं कहा क्या बोलूं? कहते बता तू कहाँ से आया? And I called my mom to come for this. She came. She flew just for that. Oh my God! And she came for that. We did this, and there were so many people there from the White House, from the people of position, from the City Hall, from Ivy League universities. And within like 4 months, I had no time to breathe because the documentary is going to be shown somewhere and they want me to come and talk about Sikhism. And then it went to the White House. I'm like, holy God, in 2011, on 20th July, the movie was screened at the White House. I'm like, this is not really happening. They called me to speak something, and thanks to Gordon Ramsay for telling me that if I need to be on the top, I need to learn how to speak English. And this is all because of my teacher, Melanie, who has been my guide for I don't know how many years. And she's the one who taught me that I need to speak slower because my accent is so strong. And Wisconsin se shuru hue, and we started doing this kind of seminars. And I was invited to Oxford, and everywhere. I'm thinking, why are people inviting me? He's saying, sir, langar yada, this is the way of life for Sikhs. इसमें कौन सी बड़ी बात है? मतलब बड़ी बात तो है बहुत ज़्यादा.
How big it is, yeah.
इसको डॉक्यूमेंट्री बना के, सर वाइट कल्चर में कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है ऐसा, कोई दुनिया में कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है सिखिज्म का ऐसा कि जो भी आए खाना खाए. And you are the first person to document it, and you're the first person openly talking about this. So that's why everybody wants you. But it was like a unique, like I didn't expect anything out of it. I was heard for the Wisconsin shooting, and I said, you know, you're looking at Sikhs, but please look what they actually believe in. Those Sikhs that you have hurt and demoralized and separated and segregated and brutally attacked, these were the six. This is where they came from. And that had really hurt me. And people were surprised at how, and we don't have much examples of, how something happens to an Indian and all the Indians don't stand up. Like everybody says, apna apna kaam karo, naukri chupani, apni naukri bacha lo. Like typical. And I came out and I openly blasting everybody. And people said, what's wrong with you? You're going to go against white culture. I said, no, I'm not going against white culture. I'm adding to the white culture. I am telling them that these are the Sikhs. फिर सबने कहा, oh, but we fund you. Would you do another documentary? I said, really? Then we did a documentary on Hinduism, Islam, on a whole month of Ramadan. And then Buddhism, we got His Holiness Dalai Lama. Then we did Kitchen of Gratitude. So people think of this, hua kab? This all happened in a kind of a imaginary sequence.
So, speaking about feeding three presidents, who are the three and what were the, like how do you make a menu for presidents? What's the thinking process and what's your assessment of their personalities? Do you make a burger for Trump and something more refined?
I didn't cook for Trump when he was president. I cooked for him. I cooked for Trump when he was in New York. I cooked for him when he was a very normal business socialite. I cooked for him then. And I think cooking for President Obama is always because he's absolutely foodie. President Clinton is totally now, he promotes also vegetarianism and veganism. And cooking for President Obama is like, he enjoys that. He enjoys that. And he had a Pakistani roommate so in Harvard, and he taught him how to make keema curry. And so every dinner, everything I've done, most of it, I've always had one form of keema curry. And he knew how to cook dal and roti. He's done rotis during college. So he'll always say, but you can't cook better keema curry than me. And Michelle, my first lady, would always react that, yeah, we've been hearing about it for 100 years, but no, I never get to see this. When is this going to happen? And every time you meet the chef and you demoralize him saying that I cook better than you, it's like, you have to pass the test with me first, and then you have to pass the test with him. But
so has he ever cooked for you? Has he ever sent you a keema? No. Now he's free. You should challenge him and ask him.
Actually, he's not free. Because we were trying to do something with him, is really not free right now. The book is mad. Yeah. I have downloaded it, and after the launch of Last Color, my first thing will be
to read it.
Opening my center, and then I'm going to read it.
So, when you were talking about food and this whole influence of your grandmother and your mother, your grandmother once told you that food is also about stories and about memories and history and culture. So for you, what is the best memory around food? What historical aspect of food in India are you most proud of? Tell me something about the culture around food for you, personally for you.
So बच्चों को इतना पता नहीं होगा आज की जनरेशन को कि पहले कनक घर पे आती थी और उसको छत पे सुखाते थे और फिर उसको हम बच्चे उठा के उसको पिसवाने लेके जाते थे to like a small shop which was like a mill और उसमें पिसवा के दरदरी कनक and then बोरियां भर के आती थी और पहली बोरी गोल्डन टेम्पल जाती थी. So that's one of the most important rituals which I always think that wow, that's so brilliant कि 10 बोरियां आपके पास आप एक बोरी जाके वहां पे दे आओ क्योंकि वो सबका खंजा किचन है. Imagine that institution was applied around the world. You will never have hunger ever. And then the second thing was एक लकड़ी की bucket थी आइसक्रीम जो होती है. And we used to do that, we take turns and we used to churn, पीछे पेड़ था आम का and we used to put custard in it and churn it and बर्फ लगा के और आइसक्रीम बनती थी. And that was I think the most hard earned ice cream in the world. And then Papa got one from China की जो होती ना प्लास्टिक की. And Papa said कि इससे जल्दी बन जाएगा. बबी जी कहते जल्दी बनना क्यों चाहिए, जल्दी क्यों बना है. तो कहते जल्दी टाइम नहीं वेस्ट होगा. कहते मैं टाइम वेस्ट नहीं करती, टाइम इकट्ठे बिता रहे थे हम. And nobody touched that plastic bucket ever. वो प्लास्टिक मशीन कभी यूज, छोटी सी थी, पता नहीं कैसे चलती भी कैसे. मैं तो and we totally got demoralized because that was the whole thing. And my sister is yelling and मैं नहीं करूँगी and first one to come and eat that. And we opened it so many times कि जमी कि नहीं जमी आइसक्रीम, that वो जमती ही नहीं थी. And sometimes it's crystallized if you don't churn it properly, if you don't aerate it properly. And, you know, those are the things. And I feel that was something very important कि गर्मियों में बाहर बैठ के और कूलर की हवा, खस की खुशबू. I think those are very important memories. And it's also great that I was born and raised in a small town, and I live in the biggest city of the world. And to transcend that culture and not to let people forget that, you know, this is also part of heritage. It is not about just following America. India has a huge, huge culture of its own.
So what was your conception of Junoon, when you created it? You had tried restaurants before that. You were talking about failure. You had failed thrice. You'd shut down restaurants. What was the distinctive idea of Junoon which caught fire then?
That was my 7th restaurant.
7th?
I'd failed a lot of. I was very enterprising at one stage. Before the 2008 economy collapsed, I was very enterprising. I made real crazy money.
Really?
Because catering, शादी energetic था, ये था. फिर जब धक्का लगा ना कि जो मर्जी कर लो, इज्जत के लिए, जैसे कोई एक्टर कहता है कि मैं इतना पैसा कमा रहा हूँ, मैं फोर्ब्स में हूँ, यहाँ पे भी हूँ. एक बंदा उससे क्वेश्चन करता है, सर, we only honor if you're Oscar nominee or you won the Oscars. World benchmark वही है. उसके बाद, and if you deny it, and then you don't understand what power you have when you win it. Like I used to always deny कि New York Times में article आके क्या हो जाएगा. And my kitchen manager, Andrew, who managed my kitchens for 15 years, he said, you will only know the difference after the article. The validation of those articles, you will understand when it happens. So don't just dismiss it. So conceptualized was that I was in France in 2008 and I totally bankruptcy हो गई, पागल हो गए, cooking school था बंद हो गया, catering बंद हो गई, because 2008 the economy just went to the toilet, and you know it affected especially the ethnic restaurants the first, you know, because people went back to their comfort foods, and you know those small places were working. It was a total economy shutdown of America. I don't know, people forget things too fast, and B1 B2 वीजे cancel हो रहे हैं सबके, because my main market was Indian बच्चे जो आते हैं बाहर से. सब कुछ वॉल स्ट्रीट के पास रेस्टोरेंट आउट, पूर्णिमा 54 स्ट्रीट एंड टाइम स्क्वायर आउट, केटरिंग तुलसी कंपनी आउट, सबने वाइप्ड आउट. मतलब people had booked weddings and all. They were like, we're going to send you lawyer's letter if you don't return the advance because our companies are totally broke right now. And the companies were just dominoes effect हुआ था बिल्कुल. And I went to France and I was training there. I don't want to get depressed. So I said, let me get my brain off. And I was working there and I had a very bad incident with a chef, and you felt that, you know, it's that because you don't have that crown. फिर उसके बाद, when I came back, what did the chef do? Became very harassed like crazy, and you know, it's like you can't touch food. People with darker hands can't cook. That's like they used to tell. And then I came back to New York with one single mission. अब तो Michelin star जीत के रहना. Sub catering band, no dilution. We need to train ourselves. We need to hone the craft. We need to understand the management. We also need to understand how to present it to the world palates. अब तो Michelin star मिलेगा. So I thought it's going to take at least 2 years, right? But we opened on December 2nd and we got the Michelin star on October 4th. I always say October 5th because उस time पे 5th हो चुकी थी India. रात को 12 बज गए थे. But we got the Michelin star on, and that was a rare thing. And because of conviction, we also had an amazing team. Amazing. Some people were so driven by this because they saw my eyes burning and constantly be heard that you're an inferior cook. I just couldn't take it.
So I was asking you, okay, one is the Michelin star, so it's the craft, but was there a different, so if you were to describe Junoon today, do you have a kind of elevator line on what Junoon stands for?
I'll tell you why my brain is changing in the last few years. You've done that, right? So it's like somebody's already won an Oscar, but now they want to do free-flowing art, right? I've seen that some of the artists do. And sometimes they get an Oscar for that also. because their brain is set free and the pressure has been taken off that you can't prove yourself because nobody contests you after you win the Oscar, right? Same thing for the Michelin. The pressure, of course, builds up because you can't be jumping into do buffets after that, and people are still judging you. When I opened Kinara, it took us 2 years to open in Dubai. Of course, the pandemic happened. I totally understand, and I also understand the Michelin Guide is coming to Dubai. Condé Nast picked this up as the favorite Indian restaurant in Dubai. Just the first 2 weeks, we said, let's experiment. Let's give that fine dining experience totally casually. हर डिश लगे पेंटिंग बन के आ रही है और आप भी देख रहे हो खाऊं कि ना खाऊं और चार्ज भी नहीं करते उस हिसाब से. Let's take this to a casual note. Let's remove the tablecloths and let's reduce that whole thing that wine trolleys and the cost of expensive sommeliers and everything is moving around. Let me experiment. And it was the most successful restaurant I've ever created. And I realized that, what happens sometimes with that whole exclusivity, you also encourage alienation. You alienate people in some ways because it's too exclusive. You feel that there's a glass in between, you cannot reach to me. But I felt that we need to break that glass. We need to invite people inside. And that is my first experiment. Of course, I'm moving slow now. This year has been slow. I was supposed to open a new restaurant in Singapore and in Beijing. Everything had to be shut down totally because we couldn't deal with it. But I did open a new restaurant called Elora in Dubai. So these are my extensions of understanding that ab comfort food hi chalega. It needs to be healing cuisines now. And India has a great opportunity because our cuisine is the only one which has spoken about healing from the very beginning. You can't say, I'm going to eat a burger now and that's going to heal me. It's never been the narrative of their cuisines. Chinese food has never had the narrative of healing cuisines. Indian food from the very traditions has started. And this is the moment for us to shine this cuisine and bring forward its most important benefits.
You talked about the healing quality of Indian food, and you've done a book on Ayurveda, so I want to come to that. But before that, just some more casual questions around your palate. One is, who are the chefs that you really admire? Are there innovations or dishes which you wish that you had made? So who's your admiration reserved for? Tell me some dish or some chef whose work you absolutely admire.
Nationally, I really, within India, I really admire Sanjeev ji. I really admire Satish ji. And I have a lot of respect for Mr. Gill, Manjeet Singh Gill. I think what Manish Mehrotra has done is kind of breaking the ceiling. These are the chefs I feel in India. What Garima has done, amazing.
Will you say the full names? Because I'm sure, I'm not sure.
Sure, but Garima Arora, Gagan Anand, Vineet Bhatia, Atul Kochar, Srijit. Srijit is based in California. He had 2 Michelin stars. One time he's hailed to the chef. I think these guys have broken the ceilings to different level, and they are just gods in the profession. I'm not exaggerating. And food writers have also helped me a lot, from Madhu Jaffrey to Julie Sani to in India, Kamala Vayogle to Monica Bede in Washington, D.C. And these are the people who have Suvir Saran. He's a pioneer. I tell Hemant Mathur and his wife Sani. These are the people who have really worked really hard to put Indian food on the map. But internationally, of course, Mr. Ramsay has been my guiding spirit. Chef Eric Repair has been very, very, very supportive of my entire career for 20 years. Daniel Bulut has helped me understanding how do you do big events. I should big events totally India style. Working with Daniel Bulut, I understand events. There's another chef, Alan Ducasse. I have never worked with him, but I've worked with his team, and I never knew precision of that kind of labeling of things and that kind of. But sometimes I feel when you overdo that too much, it becomes extremely mechanical too. So I love the free flow style of these chefs. And Mark, I don't know if you know Marcus Samuelson. He's one of the biggest legends of American, African. He's from Africa, and during the tuberculosis crisis, he was adopted in Switzerland, and from there he came to America and became the first chef, the youngest chef to get 3 stars from New York Times, which is almost unheard of. And one chef I bow to every single morning. His name is Jose Andres, and मेरी लिस्ट नहीं खत्म होने वाली. I mostly throw Indian chefs names because I feel that it helps you to develop that circle the way French chefs do. That you ask a French chef who's your favorite, there is no way he's going to name a British chef or Indian chef. They'll all name French chefs. I think that is why they're ahead, because they all are holding hands. Nothing can better than unity.
Just last question, you were speaking of Anthony Bourdain, you spoke of how people see the food on the table, but never the fire in the kitchen. And you spoke of how difficult it is to really be a chef. So have you felt that yourself? You seem like so multifaceted and all of that, but did you feel those pressures when you were on this journey? Not otherwise, not from the world, not from racism, but in this challenge between food and yourself?
You know, how many hours does a chef has to work in Manhattan to make a kitchen operate? 16 hours is minimum. In the farming years, 15, 16 hours will go nowhere. There's no off day because there's some issue with some chef who has been fired, so you have to be on duty. Line cook नहीं है तो chef की cuisine नहीं आया तो ये नहीं आया, तो pastry chef नहीं आया तो runner नहीं आया, तो आज barker नहीं आया. अब barker नहीं आया तो Barker is the guy who actually says the orders to the line cooks. If he doesn't come, the person who has to jump in is executive chef. Because there is no way everybody knows where everything is. And Barker is the lifeline. And in busy days, executive chef has to become the Barker or managing the stewards. And then also in Manhattan, there's also this whole thing about the expectation is so high. If you had this vision of experiencing the world's best restaurants, it's New York City. But also the expectation of these chefs is very high. And if you're not living to the opportunity, they will tell you in your face, well, you should have a restaurant in Queens. I'm like, why would you say that? Because the standards are the Queen. I'm like, oh my God. And that's like the worst thing you can tell anyone. It's like, and so you have to push yourself way too much. And that's one of the biggest causes of sometimes depression or addictions or too many surgeries. My total spine is totally, I have to work out every single day to keep my lungs and my spine fit. It's like and my left hand fit. There is no way if I stop doing that, because it's happened in the pandemic and because of Feed India, everything is like dominoes effect in my body. I just can't, because I've abused my body for what you're saying, those hours. That fire in the kitchen is hard, but you also understand that you're getting old. शुरू तब इतना हर्ट नहीं होता था. अब जब खड़े होके निकालना पड़ता है सब कुछ, तो you feel it's that whole management. That's why we always keep young people in the front. When you were like 10 years ago, you could do that entire operation yourself, 350 dinners, tasting menus and everything. But then you figure out you're touching 50, you need to take, all the chefs will tell you need to take a backstage because otherwise you'll be done very soon. Because it's a candle burning on both the ends. You're getting work done from way too many people, and one puzzle that doesn't fit in, entire kitchen collapses. And we don't have that provision of hiring too many people in Manhattan because everybody's on hours, and we're also managing the kitchen cost. 30% होनी हमारी क्या cost होनी, 40% food cost. So we can't. We are totally bound. The cost of the employee यहाँ पे तो $26 घंटा कोई ले रहा है, तो कोई $22 ले रहा है, 1 मिनट भी किसने एक्स्ट्रा काम किया वो 1 घंटे का लगा देगा पैसा. यहाँ पे ना rules and those laws are very difficult, and that eats up on the chefs.
Thank you, Vikas. It's been such a beautiful conversation.
Likewise.
I want to literally end with one last question, that if you were to pick an ingredient or some ingredient of Indian food that is your absolute staple or your desire food, what is that?
मैं अभी लेके आया हूँ बड़ी shipment आई है मुलेठी की. Mulethi is liquorized and it's like sticks, barks होती हैं. And we are feeling that putting 2 in, because I have to measure everything, in 5 pounds rice, you crush them and put them. My God, rice becomes 10 times more aromatic. And I don't know why it has not been used so much. It has been used in some regions of Peshawar and Multan and यहाँ से मम्मा आते हैं. But we started feeling if we need to put that, it's more interesting than cinnamon. So you're going to see some nice innovations. I hope, inshallah, we'll go move forward with this.
Thank you so
very
much, Vikas. Wonderful talking to you.
Have a good night.